Here's the truth about near-death experiences. The moment the body fails, people don't usually report going to heaven or floating towards some distant realm. They report finally arriving at what they've always been, like you've been holding your breath your entire life, and death is the first exhale, like you've been wearing a blindfold in a dark room, and dying just removes both. What they discovered on the other side wasn't a place. It was the end of displacement, the return to what never actually left. And if that's true, if you're not traveling towards something when you die, but remembering what you've been all along, then everything you think about your life is inverted. You're not here to find yourself. You're here to forget yourself on purpose. And the reason why will destroy every spiritual assumption you've ever made. Let me show you what I mean. Across every near-death experience I've studied, and I've gone deep into this, certain patterns emerge. Not similarities, identicals. Pattern 1. Consciousness expands when the body fails. The heart stops. The brain flatlines. And awareness doesn't diminish, it explodes. People describe seeing 360 degrees simultaneously, perceiving multiple locations at once, understanding complex concepts instantly, without language, without thought. Pam Reynolds heard the conversations in the operating room while her brain was drained of blood. Eben Alexander experienced vast realms of consciousness while his neocortex was offline, non-functional, destroyed by bacteria. The brain isn't creating consciousness, it's limiting it, like a dam holding back an ocean. And when the dam breaks, the ocean remembers what it is. Pattern 2. Separation dissolves. In the life review, that moment where your entire existence plays back, you don't just watch yourself. You become everyone you interacted with. You feel what they felt, not as observation, as experience. When you were cruel, you are the cruelty from the other side. When you loved, you feel that love landing in another heart as if it's landing in your own, because it is your own. There is no them, there never was. Every boundary you've defended, every wall you've built between yourself and others, it's a fiction, a necessary fiction for this level of reality, but a fiction nonetheless. You weren't just connected to everyone you met. You were everyone you met, experiencing yourself from a different aperture. Pattern 3. Unconditional acceptance is the ground state of reality. Almost every experiencer encounters what they call the light, and they struggle to describe it because human language doesn't have words for that level of love. Not approval, not affection, not even the deepest human love you've ever felt. Something categorically different. Love as substance, as the fabric of existence itself. And here's what disturbs people when they try to explain it. The light doesn't judge. Even as they're watching their worst moments, feeling the pain they caused, the light doesn't condemn, doesn't punish, doesn't shame. It just loves. Why? This is what collapses every religious framework you were taught. The light isn't separate from you. It's not God looking at you. It's you. Recognizing yourself without the costume of personality, without the mask of ego, without the amnesia of incarnation. It's what you actually are when you stop pretending to be small. So let me ask you directly, if this is true, if your infinite consciousness temporarily wearing a human nervous system, why don't you remember? Why the veil? Why the forgetting? Why this crushing sense of separation and limitation? Every experiencer touches this question, and most come back with some version of, so we can learn, so we can grow. But that's not an answer, that's a placeholder. Learn what? Grow how? Toward what endpoint? If you're already infinite, already complete, already connected to everything, what is there to learn? And more importantly, who designed this system? Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because the near-death experience gives you the destination, but not the map. It's like someone showing you a photograph of a beautiful city and saying, "You're from there." Okay, great, that shifts everything. But how do you get back? What are the roads? What are the rules of transit? Why did you leave in the first place? NDEs prove the city exists. They don't explain the infrastructure. They don't tell you why there are levels. Why some people access vast realms and others just float above their body. Why certain souls seem more advanced, more luminous. Why there's a sense of progression, of evolution, of movement towards something. They don't explain why, if we're all one, we experience ourselves as many. They don't explain the purpose of density, of matter, of time. They show you that consciousness survives. They don't explain what consciousness is doing. And that question, the architecture question, the purpose question, that's where most experiencers just shrug and say some version of, "I can't explain it. There are no words. I just knew, but knew what?" That's the gap. The gap between mystical experience and metaphysical framework, between feeling truth and understanding structure. I've spent months in that gap, collecting accounts, analyzing patterns, trying to build a coherent model from fragments. And here's what I realized. Near-death experiences are not the answer. They're the question. They prove you're not what you think you are, but they don't tell you what you actually are within the larger cosmological design. They prove there's more, but they don't reveal the order of more. It's like waking up from a dream and remembering you have a house, a family, a life beyond the dream, but not remembering the address. Not remembering how to get home. Not remembering why you went to sleep in the first place. You need the map, and the map exists. In 1981, a group of researchers made contact with an entity calling itself Ra. Not a ghost, not an angel, not a deity in the way religion uses that word. Ra identified as a social memory complex, a unified consciousness made up of millions of souls who had evolved beyond individuality into collective awareness. A hive that retained all individual perspectives while functioning as one. Over 106 sessions, this entity laid out something extraordinary, a complete cosmology of consciousness, not beliefs, not mythology, a working model of how reality is structured, why you're here, what you're evolving toward, and how the whole system operates from the quantum to the cosmic. It's called the Law of One. And here's why it matters. The Law of One doesn't contradict near-death experiences. It contextualizes them. It explains why consciousness expands when the body fails. Because you're moving from third density to fourth, from physical to time-space, from separation to unity. It explains the life review. Because at higher densities, polarity crystallizes. You're either serving self or serving others. And the review forces you to see what you've been doing. It explains the light, not as God external to you, but as the Logos, the creative principle, the unified field of intelligent infinity, which you are a fractal hologram of. It explains why you forgot, because third density is designed as a veiled experience. Genuine free will requires genuine ignorance. You can't choose love if you remember that you are love. The choice would be mechanical, but here in the dark, under the veil, with no memory of what you are, every act of love is a miracle. Every moment you choose unity over separation, service over selfishness, you're not following programming. You're not obeying instinct. You're making the most profound choice a fragment of the Creator can make. To recognize itself in another and act accordingly. The Law of One teaches that reality is organized into 8 densities of experience. You're in the third, the density of self-awareness and choice. Below you, second density, animals, plants, the biosphere learning to reach toward light, toward growth, toward the possibility of self-reflection. Above you, fourth density, the density of love and understanding, where the veil dissolves and you remember you're one, but now you live it consciously with full awareness. Fifth density, wisdom. Sixth, unity of love and wisdom. Seventh, the gateway to infinity. Eighth, the octave, where the Creator knows itself completely and begins the cycle again at a higher turn of the spiral. You're climbing a ladder of consciousness. In every lifetime, every choice, every moment of suffering or joy, it's all curriculum. Not punishment, not randomness, designed experience. You came here to learn what separation feels like, so you can choose unity. You came here to forget what you are, so you can discover what you are. The NDEs show you the truth. The law of one shows you why the truth is hidden. And that changes everything. Because now the question isn't, does consciousness survive? The question is, what are you doing with your awareness right now? In this density, under this veil. Every interaction is a test you designed for yourself. Every person who triggers you is you, showing yourself where you still believe in separation. Every act of kindness is the Creator loving itself through your hands. You're not preparing for some distant awakening. You're in the awakening right now. This, right here, this dense, difficult, heartbreaking, beautiful physical reality, this is the only place where the choice matters. Because once you die, once the veil lifts, the game is over. You remember, and then you review the choices you made in the dark. Were they loving? Were they true? Did you see through the illusion, or did you reinforce it? The experiencers come back and say, love is all that matters. The law of one explains why. Because love, true love, service to others' love, is the polarity that moves you to fourth density. It's not morality, it's physics. You're literally choosing the frequency of your next experience. So here's where we go from here. Over the coming weeks, we're diving into the law of one in detail. The densities, the harvest, the veil, the concept of social memory complexes, how consciousness evolves, why planets have consciousness, what happens when a species graduates to fourth density collectively. We're not leaving the near-death experiences behind. We're using them as confirmation. Every NDE we've examined becomes more profound when you see it through the framework of the law of one. It's not information. It's remembering. And if something in you is resonating with this, not agreeing with it intellectually, but recognizing it, then you're ready. This is the surrender space, and you're not here by accident. Stay with me and subscribe, because what you're about to discover isn't just a philosophy, it's the blueprint of your own consciousness.